I take a week off, I come back, there's this massive Halo Infinite single-player gameplay reveal trailer, and you know me, I gotta talk about it. So that's what today's video is going to be dedicated to. If you haven't seen it, I will post a link to it in the description below. I am not showing it here. I'm showing Halo 3 gameplay because I feel a lot of Halo 3 inspiration coming into that gameplay trailer, and I'm very, very excited for what I saw. I guess I'll start off by saying that I am slightly worried about where Halo Infinite's story is going to go, because I feel like this is supposed to be some of the culmination of what has happened with Cortana. I have been very critical of 343 since this all started, and I say this is the the Reclaimer saga, right? This is everything that's happened post the original trilogy. I've always been cautious about this and nervous about where the story has gone, because Halo has a really nasty problem of not telling a solid story in the game. It requires a lot of understanding of the larger universe that includes the limited edition comic books that they do, definitely draws heavily upon their novel series. And if you haven't been reading those, and let's face it, there's only a handful of us that do, you're probably very lost with what's going on. You're going to be introduced to new characters that you don't know. You're going to be introduced to potentially different themes or different places in space and in time that don't really make a lot of logical sense. Of course, it's going to be tied together by that world-class Halo gameplay and that great loop of gameplay. However, the story is going to be lost to many people who just don't understand what's going on or are so confused by these really grandiose ideas like the Librarian and the Didact and the Ark and all these other relics and people that you just are like, whatever, just I don't care anymore. So the fact that Halo Infinite is going to take place on a new ring, the Zeta ring, is good. And I'll say it's good because this is a place that nobody's been to yet. It's going to be a fresh adventure for all of us. This isn't a place that is talked about in the books. This isn't a place that's talked about in any of the other lore. It doesn't have a lot of history to it that we know of. So we are going to be exploring it in the game for the first time. There's going to be no comparisons drawn to other Halo first discoveries or to other major events that happened within said Halo universe, because we don't understand what has happened here, and that's really, really good. Unfortunately, and this is where I do get a little bit worried, we are going to be facing a very familiar foe with the Banished. If you have played Halo Wars and Halo Wars 2, you know that that follows the UNSC Spirit of Fire and their adventures out in far, far deep space fighting against this rebel group of Covenant, essentially, led by some pretty nasty dudes. And although we get some closure at the end of the second Halo Wars 2 game, there's definitely a big kind of cliffhanger when they are swept up into the Guardians. I don't want to call it the crisis, but they're swept into what's going on with the Guardians. That's kind of how it ends, where they come back and all of a sudden Cortana has gone nutso and the world is in shambles. So if you're really looking at it from a big picture, we have the story arc of the UNSC Spirit of Fire, and then we have that story arc of the UNSC Infinity meeting together now, supposedly, somewhere around this Zeta Halo ring, with their arcs kind of merging. Now, I can tell you, and I don't think I'm giving away too much here by saying Halo Wars 2 was not very well received. It did not do very well in the critical reviews. The gameplay itself was left some things to be desired. So I'm curious if they're going to, 343 in this case, are they going to drop that storyline? Like, are we going to find out what Jerome 092 is up to? Are we going to find out what Alice 130 is up to? Are we going to find out what Douglas 042 is up to? These were three pivotal Spartans that played a very, very significant role in the defense and fighting against Atriox and in the Banished, that whole arc of people. Very, very ferocious fighting that took place there. That, while they didn't have a whole lot of dialogue, I think everybody can universally agree that's it was Jerome who really took charge. He looks a lot like the Chief. He's got the big red stripe over his right breastplate as well as down his helmet. He's rocking that old Halo 1 helmet. He looks pretty awesome. And everybody grew to like him. I'd be really curious to see, as we enter this next Halo game, if we're going to see the unification of some of these other Spartans together. Up until Halo 3, honestly, I think most people who hadn't read the books did not know that other Spartans existed. I think it's pretty safe to say most people felt like the Master Chief was the lone wolf, the final chance, the final savior of humanity against the Covenant. And it was presented to us that way really for a very long time. It wasn't until we started hearing rumblings of this other team that existed and of these other Spartans, particularly in the book universe. Obviously, that trickles into Halo 4, definitely into Halo 5 Guardians. But we didn't really know about a lot of these guys before. Now, at least in the video game sphere, where I suspect most of the players are coming from and most people have the best intimate knowledge of at least the video games, there is a chance that we may see some intersecting of other Spartans, and that has me very intrigued. Because it is a new world, because nobody has really established a foothold on Zeta Halo. I mean, I guess technically the Banished are, that's why you're going to go smoke them. But outside of that, no human has really been there as far as I can tell. I'll be very curious to see what happens in terms of the story. So, remains to be seen. I'll pause on the story part. I'll move on to some of the other gameplay elements. And specifically with these video clips, why am I showing you guys Halo 3 gameplay? I think Halo 3, better than any other Halo, really embraced a very vivid sandbox design where a lot of the areas that you fought in were full of vehicles and weapons and numerous ways to approach them. I specifically chose this gameplay from the Halo 3 game, Savo Highway, as you are working your way through this crumbled highway system, where you're going to be able to take on waves and waves of enemies in very creative ways. From what I saw in that gameplay trailer, it is very clear to me that this is going to be a light open world Halo. You're going to have large sandboxes with numerous ways to engage the enemy, whether it be sniper rifles at range, or more like guerrilla warfare, or run and gun. Looks like you can call in vehicles at certain checkpoints. They showed the Wasp featured, so there's going to be a sense of verticality if you want it. Obviously, you're going to be able to rescue people. It looked like they were just other civilians or some sort of prisoners. It wasn't really entirely clear to me, but they were jumping on, getting a full hog going there. You got some rando on the back rolling out that 50 cal, and it just had Halo 3 vibes all over it. And I like that. I'm very, very excited for that because that gives me the sense, one, of insane replayability, but two, I think really opens up some of the gameplay that's going to give us some of those really defining moments in Halo. And I can't think of better examples than really in Halo 3, where you had these larger-than-life set pieces. Here's yet another one from the Storm, where we are going to take out a Scarab. Multiple ways we could have done this. We could have driven around on our Mongoose and rocketed this thing down, or you could do what I do and climb up this elevator and board it and fight enemies there. I feel like you put this type of gameplay, this cinematic feel, in an open world the way that Halo Infinite it looks like it's going to do. I think we're going to be in for a good time. And I think if they can marry in that good story that I just spent the last 10 minutes kind of explaining where I think they've gone wrong. If they can fix some of those things and tie up some of the loose ends with the Spirit of Fire, and make everything meaningful, I have a feeling we're going to have a really good game. Graphically, it looked amazing. I know that Halo has struggled with that, at least in the last year, particularly on some of the graphical, especially really with some of the preview footage that they showed. There's been a lot of critiques on that, and rightfully so. Some of the flat lighting and low detail design, and I feel that has been completely resolved. I did a series of reviews during the Halo Infinite flight, looking at multiplayer maps and character modeling and lighting and weapon design, and the feel of the game is there. In those big team battle moments when you're fighting against other Spartans in an open, lush environment, a scenario that we're not really used to in Halo, it felt very natural and very real. I think adding in a grappling hook for some of those crazy moments, like doing a grapple jack, like that's when you grapple onto an enemy vehicle to steal it, or to swing across a chasm, or to pull a plasma barrel closer to you. I feel like those elements are going to amplify gameplay. So I think they did a good job showing just enough that really kind of solidified to me that I think we're going to be in for a treat. My biggest fear, outside of what I had mentioned previously, particularly with the cast and crew of the UNSC Spirit of Fire, is the fact that we don't see the AI from that game. If you recall, Isabella was not necessarily a militarized AI. She kind of had to become one because that's all they had. I was hoping we would get more of her, and maybe we will in Halo Infinite, but it seems they really want to give Cortana kind of a little bit more to do. Jen Taylor is the voice actress, who's really cool, by the way. I got to meet her a couple times. Seems like they wanted to give her a lot of work, and you're going to be basically dealing with Cortana 2.0, aka the weapon, who is designed, I assume, to somehow fight back against the original Cortana. That'll be an interesting fight there to see how that kind of works out. But I kind of would have liked to see maybe a little bit more nod to the Halo Wars 2 cast and crew. But again, that could be a twist that comes later on. I don't know. The heart and soul of Halo has always been the Master Chief and his relationship to Cortana. That's what has driven every single adventure we've gone on. So it makes sense that if this is going to be the swan song for maybe both of them, or maybe Cortana, or at least this Guardians arc, we have no idea what will happen in the future. But maybe I could understand why they really want to double down on the kind of OG Halo look and feel of the game, and maybe just sprinkle in a little bit of the Halo Wars gameplay there, but not too much, because they would much rather kind of focus solely on the Chief and his exploits. And I honestly think after the backlash that 343 received, after Halo 5 Guardians, that makes a lot of sense. I did not see Spartan Locke at all, or any of the other characters, although if you've read the extended universe, Spartan Buck is now a happily married man, and I don't know how much Spartaning he's going to be doing in the future. Veronica Dare now married to Spartan Buck. I don't know where she's going to be in this game, and I understand that the extended world can focus on those things, and I don't know if that's pivotal to the search for Cortana. But if this is going to be some sort of a send-off, it would be really nice if we got all the characters kind of together in one final, almost Avengers-like hero tag-up moment, maybe, where we could all get everybody together and kind of have that final moment where we all said, yes, all the characters stand shoulder to shoulder and fight the bad guy. Remains to be seen. Everything I saw here was fascinating, and I'm incredibly, incredibly enthusiastic. I cannot wait for this game to come out. I cannot wait to get this collector edition controller or the console. So stay tuned as I get myself way too hyped up for those things. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.